Cool. So I guess what I wanted to work on first was the to-dos that were left in the app. So what I'm going to do is just go in the order, right? So I want to be able to create a transaction from a string record, basically this. So we're going to go ahead and implement in the I don't have the file open. Okay, transaction, same thing for the transaction type, as you can see. We want to implement I don't know, copy pasting, but whatever. String record from a string record, and we want to create a transaction. So this is a string record, and rather than there's a main. Cool, there it is. So we can return this. Hopefully no errors. Right, record. Let's do that. Oh, wow, okay, first try. And then we can just do get it from the record. Let's just make sure that it still works. Let's run this. It ran, it finished, it outputted some stuff. We're going to update the transactions.csv because it's no longer, some of the assumptions that I made are not valid, so I'm just going to go ahead and come up with some new transactions. Okay, so we got rid of the first to do. Let's do the next one. Overflow, right. Watching for overflow may not be necessary. Just gonna convert this to a note. Is normally watching out for, but actually let's just make this watching for the overflow is worth overflows are worth watching out for, but I think this example is dealing with credit card transactions. It's unlikely someone has the funds to overflow a float 64. Even if they do, the credit card companies have an upper limit. Which is not even close to F64. So yeah, overflows are, you gotta be careful about overflows, but we're really dealing with large numbers, and it's also credit card transactions, which, even if it is $100,000, it's not even going to be close to float 64. So that's okay in my opinion. Right, so I have a comment that's not where it's supposed to be, so let's fix that. So at this point, what if the available amount is negative? Right, so we are doing a dispute. So let's read more about the dispute. Okay, disputed amount, dispute. Reverse get that the funds should be held. So a transaction doesn't exist, so you can ignore it, but the transaction does exist. And I think it makes a difference how we treat this transaction, because if you're disputing a deposit and if you're disputing a withdrawal, it's a different thing. And I feel that dispute is usually related to withdrawals. Because I mean, obviously, who's going to complain that funds were deposited, right? So you could. I mean, there are honest people that do that, but typically, most complaints. Yeah, typically most complaints are if there is a withdrawal that someone doesn't agree with, right? But I think we're trying to resolve it. So what are we doing when it's time to resolve? We are releasing the, so yeah, it looks to me like disputes are usually related to, at least in this context, are related to withdrawals only, because we are releasing the associated funds. That the client's held funds should be decreased, the available funds should increase, and the total funds should remain the same. Okay, I'm gonna come back to this one. Because the to-do is like, the second part of this to-do is to, sorry, it's not this. Second part of this to-do is, do we handle I think the answer should be yes. It should depend whether it's a deposit or a withdrawal. But it doesn't say that it should. Transaction that was erroneous, it should be reversed. Let's say I deposited $50 and I'm disputing that I deposited $50. So the available funds will decrease and the held funds will increase. Total funds are the same. And then if you resolve that transaction, you are decreasing the held funds. Okay. Yeah, we gotta have some more tests. So let's do that. So let's create a processor, and we are going to create a process transaction, and that is going to be a brand new transaction. Let's import, and we are going to add the fields. Transaction type is deposit. Client is 7,000. Transaction is 1, and then the amount is also 1. Right, sum. And we want to assert that transactions.length is greater than 0. So we got our test, it's passing. Okay. Let's do right, it's not actually running this test because I'm missing the declaration here. So let's run it again. Okay. So let's add another test. Process deposit should call count deposit, and we'll do the same thing here. And we know that there's no account, so we expect an account to be created, and deposit. Yeah, so transactions accounts, right? And then account equals processor dot accounts dot get 7,000 is the ID, and we can unwrap it, and we got our account, and we're going to do another assert account dot available equals 1.0. So let's do the test. What's the problem here? Right, okay, fine. Let's do that. Let's run this test. So we have tested the deposit. Let's also test the so for the accounts, I want to seed the following: process withdraw, and then we have so I prefer to do this. I want to say available deposit 100, and then we're going to insert, well, this is a client 7,000, right? So we're going to just do this. Let client ID 7,000, That's my client, and we're going to insert into the accounts. That's client ID. Yeah. 100. We are going to withdraw 50, and we expect available to be 50. And let's run this test. That's right. Okay, so withdrawal is working. You want to test that dispute. There's a few different tests that we can do for dispute. I'm just not going to write them all. It's a little bit tedious, but additional tests to consider. Process dispute should ignore transaction if it is not related to the same client. Process to ignore should call account dispute. And we're going to do the same test for resolve. And should call the account resolve, and then should ignore if it is not disputed. Same thing for the chargeback. Process chargeback should ignore if it's not related to the same client. Chargeback should call account chargeback. Do the same thing for here. So yeah, it's tedious to write this. Maybe I'll write it off camera. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing live at this point. I'm looking to like wrap this up. So okay, so maybe just give it to do. So let's think about what do we have here? Seeding the data, right? Okay, so this is more interesting now. So yeah, I think disputes are really related to, you know, some kind of withdrawal. Let's read more about disputes. Dispute represents a client's claim that a transaction was erroneous and should be reversed. Transaction should be reversed, but the associate funds should be held. This means that the client's available funds should decrease by the amount disputed. Their held funds should be increased. Yeah, I'm gonna write this down as like an unknown here because I'm not gonna do login. I'll add a note about, yeah. All right. Yeah, also assume that after a transaction, an account is locked, no transactions are accepted for that account. Um, yeah, so generally failfast is preferred if this was streaming data to a function or a lambda. We could fail on this transaction and log it to a database. But cannot do this in this for this example because anyway, I think I'm done I'm kind of done here. So I'm just gonna clean up my code a little bit. I don't want to copy and type and do the same thing. So yeah, I'm gonna clean up the code. I'm just gonna come up with some edge cases and yeah, I'm gonna try to wrap this up.